They thought she'd never show up. In fact, the entire plan depended on it. The anonymous messages, the intentionally warm-sounding invitation full of fake nostalgia, the private group chats filled with laughing emojis, every step was carefully orchestrated to lure her back, just so they could enjoy one last cruelty. After all, what was a reunion without entertaining themselves at someone else's expense? And who better than the girl they once mocked without remorse? The class loser, the nobody, the ghost who drifted through high school halls unseen, except when they wanted someone to laugh at. But none of them expected the sky to shake before she arrived. No one anticipated the thunderous vibration that would roll across the reunion grounds like an omen. Inside the old gym, the first hints of the evening's drama were already unfolding. Students turned adults clinked glasses beside half-inflated balloons and crooked banners, reading, "Welcome back, class of 2015. The place smelled like polished wood and sweaty memories, but to them, it was a perfect stage for their long-awaited event. A small cluster of former cheerleaders formed their predictable circle near the refreshment table. They held their drinks with pinkies out, whispering behind sleek hair and heavy makeup. Tara Macmillan, former Queen Bee, self-appointed reunion organizer, and full-time orchestrator of drama, hovered in the center like a smug planet with her satellite stop bar. "Do you think she'll actually come?" Tara asked, smirking as she stirred her drink with an unnecessary flourish. "Burr." Nay of her friends rolled her eyes. "Please. Maya Delton? She was terrified of us in high school. She's probably still hiding under a blanket somewhere reading those weird books she liked." The group laughed, clinking their glasses in mock sympathy. "You know what would be hilarious?" Another friend chimed in. "If she comes in wearing the same ugly shoes she always wore. Remember those things? Didn't she glue the sole back on once?" More laughter. Maya Delton. That name still carried the same venom for them it always had, because they'd never really let go of the thrill of tormenting someone who couldn't fight back. Back then, she was the quiet girl no one understood. She had worn threadbare clothes, carried a backpack patched with hand-sewn stitches, and spent her lunches buried in books at the far corner of the library. She lived a life these privileged, pampered teenagers couldn't comprehend. To them, she was an easy target, a piece of background scenery, the perfect outlet for their insecurities. But time has a strange way of reshaping people. While Maya had transformed in ways they could never imagine, the others had barely evolved at all. If anything, their intentions had grown more venomous with age. Tonight they wanted closure, not for Maya, but for themselves. They wanted one last laugh, one final chance to feel powerful. Little did they know the joke was hiding in the shadows, waiting to detonate. Near the DJ booth, two former football players nudged each other, chuckling as they glanced toward the entrance. "Man, I kinda hope she shows," one said. "It would be fun to see if she still blushes like a tomato when someone talks to her, or if she still stutters," the other added, laughing. At the back of the room, someone snickered as they scrolled through the group chat titled, "Operation Reunion Surprise." A scrolling feed of screenshots, old photos of Maya's awkward teenage years, memes made at her expense and cruel commentary, dotted the screen like scars of immaturity that never healed. Meanwhile, outside, the night air swayed with quiet anticipation. A warm breeze rustled the trees that lined the school property, carrying whispers of what was about to break the fragile peace. Crickets chirped. The moon shone bright. Everything seemed normal, almost serene. And then, a rumble, a low guttural vibration. It started faint, like distant thunder, but quickly it grew stronger, louder, heavier, until the windows of the gym rattled in their frames. Drinks jolted on tables. Decorations quivered. Conversations halted. "What's that?" someone asked, half laughing but visibly startled. The rumble intensified, rolling across the ground like a monster awakening. The lights flickered. A few people gasped. "It sounds like a helicopter?" One of the men near the door guessed, shrugging. But this wasn't just any helicopter. The air outside exploded into chaos as a massive Apache helicopter, matte black, sleek, and intimidating, came into view above the treetops. Its rotors cut through the night with a roar that swallowed conversation and silenced laughter. Dust spiraled up from the field beside the gym, swirling into thick, whipping clouds as the metal beast descended. People ran to the nearest windows, hands against the glass, shocked and confused. "Oh my God, is that..." Military? What is an Apache doing here? Is there some emergency? Someone pulled out their phone. Another screamed when the blast of wind from the rotors blew debris across the parking lot. Tara, suddenly pale, stumbled toward the windows with the rest of the crowd. Her eyes widened as she shielded her face from the dust filtering in through the open doorway. "Who the hell would come to a high school reunion in a helicopter?" she shouted above the noise. The helicopter landed with a heavy thud, commanding, authoritative, impossible to ignore. Two heavily armed soldiers stepped off first, each moving with precision, scanning the area like it was a classified operation. No one dared breathe. And then, the door opened again. Boots emerged first, combat boots, polished and worn by experience. A tall figure followed, a woman, stepping down with a calmness that felt both intimidating and mesmerizing. Her uniform fit her like a second skin. Her posture radiated training and discipline. Her movements were controlled, powerful, confident, everything Maya Delton had never been in their eyes. And yet, as the woman moved closer into the floodlight's glow, faces inside the gym transformed from curiosity to disbelief. No, it can't be. Wait, is that Maya? Tara's jaw dropped so wide her drink nearly slipped from her hand. There she was, Maya Delton. Except she wasn't the trembling, quiet, broken girl they remembered. This Maya looked like she'd stepped straight out of a military legend, someone forged in fire and storms. Her expression was calm, focused, with a sharp edge of authority. Her stride alone made people instinctively move aside. Maya walked across the field with the presence of someone who had commanded squadrons, who had seen things far beyond the petty cruelty of these former classmates. The lights glinted off. Her badges, every step was a declaration. She wasn't the same. She wasn't even close. Inside the gym, the self-appointed bullies felt something new crawl down their spines, an emotion they rarely experienced: shame. The air grew thick as Maya approached the entrance. Some people tried to hide behind others. Some stared openly, their mouths hanging in disbelief. Others held their breath, as if she carried an invisible force that stripped them bare. One of the football players whispered, "Dude, she looks like she could break us with one hand." Another muttered, "She looks like she commands that helicopter." But nothing prepared them for the moment she stepped through the doorway. The room went silent, so silent that even the hum of the air conditioning sounded thunderous. Maya paused at the threshold and surveyed the faces. Her gaze was steady, almost surgical. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't intimidated. She wasn't unsure. Every pair of eyes that met hers instantly looked away, because none of them could stand the reflection of who they once were. In that silence, Maya's presence filled the room like a tidal wave. She wasn't here to be mocked. She wasn't here to be laughed at. She wasn't here as their victim. She was here because they had summoned her with the same arrogance that once fueled their cruelty. But this time, they had no idea what they had invited. This time, their prey had returned as a warrior. This time, the class loser had arrived with enough power to freeze everyone in place without saying a single word. The helicopter blades outside slowed to a stop, but inside the gym, the storm had only begun, and not one of them, even Tara, was laughing anymore. The moment Maya stepped deeper into the reunion hall, every conversation faded like someone had sucked the oxygen out of the building. The music, once loud enough to drown out gossip, now felt intrusive, so the DJ quickly turned the volume down to a timid murmur. People shifted, straightened their clothes, forced smiles, or simply froze in place as her boots clicked across the gym's polished floor. Tara Macmillan, who had once commanded an entire cafeteria with a flick of her hair, suddenly felt like a child caught doing something wrong. Her fingers tightened around her glass, knuckles whitening as she swallowed the lump in her throat. She had planned everything down to the last detail, except this, till she forced her lips into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes and stepped toward Maya. "Maya, you made it," she stuttered, her voice cracking like an old radio burr. Aya looked at her calmly. "I was invited." Quite insistently. T wasn't a threat. It wasn't sarcasm. It was simply truth, spoken with an authority that came from years of real responsibility, something Tara had never learned. Ara flinched anyway. Behind her, the cheerleaders whispered among themselves, She looks so different. Brr. Is that really her? Brr. Why does she look like she owns the place? Old football players watched with wide, uncertain eyes. Several people who had RSVP'd just to witness the prank were now pretending they had never been part of it. And see, upon a time, Maya would have shrunk under this scrutiny. But now? She stood tall, each breath controlled, each movement measured, as if stepping into a battlefield she already knew she could win. So, Tara said, eager to regain control, what do you do now? You look important. Former bully with a beer in his hand chimed in. Yeah, Maya, what's with the helicopter? Are you like dating someone powerful or something? Brr. Aya held his gaze with a stillness that made him swallow hard. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. Attack helicopter pilot. Silence. You could have heard a pin drop, maybe even a heart or two. One of the cheerleaders gasped softly. That helicopter was hers? Maya didn't need to confirm it. Her uniform did the talking. Someone else whispered, Lieutenant Colonel? At her age? That's insane. But Maya wasn't basking in their amazement. She wasn't here to show off. She didn't come to prove anything. Her pride didn't depend on their approval. It never had. She came because they called her. She came because she faced greater horrors than high school bullies. She came because she was no one's victim anymore. And something about that terrified them more than any weapon she could carry. Tara cleared her throat. Well, wow, that's impressive. We always knew you'd blossom eventually. Maya raised an eyebrow. Is that what you call it? Several people coughed awkwardly. Then, from the corner of the room, someone whispered just loud enough for Maya to hear. Yeah, right. Once a loser, always a loser. Just wearing a fancy suit now. A few snickered, nervous, quiet, but still cruel. Maya turned toward the sound, slowly, deliberately. Her expression didn't change, but the air shifted around her. The whispers died like a flame deprived of oxygen. She spoke evenly, her voice low but cutting through the hall with the precision of a blade. I didn't achieve what I have because of you, she said. I achieved it despite you. Stunned silence. 1 heartbeat. 2, 3. Tara's smile faltered completely. The rest of the bullies stared at the floor, faces burning with humiliation. The truth in Maya's words was too sharp to ignore. She continued, You invite me here as a joke, to remind me of who I used to be. But you don't understand. Every insult you ever threw at me became fuel. Her eyes swept across the room. You pushed me down until I learned to stand taller than all of you. No one dared speak. The man who had mocked her earlier tried to look away, but Maya held his gaze for one more second before turning. Outside the windows, the Apache sat like a silent guardian, its presence reminding everyone that Maya lived in a world far bigger and far harsher than any of them had ever experienced. Everyone could feel it now. She wasn't exaggerating, she wasn't pretending, she wasn't performing. She had lived through storms, and they had spent their lives creating puddles. The DJ slowly turned the music back up, as if trying to fill the crushing silence with something, anything. But the energy in the room had shifted permanently. People began approaching Maya, not with mockery, but with genuine curiosity, admiration, even guilt. So you really fly that thing? What's it like being in combat? You look incredible, Maya. But Maya didn't smile. She didn't glow under their attention. She didn't soften. Respect earned through fear or shock was not the respect she valued. She answered politely but briefly, her eyes scanning faces, memories, and echoes of past hurts. Then, as if the universe wanted to expose one last truth, someone whispered from behind a cluster of onlookers. I didn't think she'd survive high school, and now, look at her. It wasn't meant as an insult. It was meant as awe. But it hit the crowd like a confession, because Maya had survived. She had escaped the version of herself they had tried to trap. She had rewritten her story while they had stayed trapped in old chapters. And now she stood in front of them, not as the girl they mocked, but as the woman they could never hope to intimidate again. The soldiers outside the gym kept watch. The helicopter's silhouette loomed like a beast waiting for its commander. And Maya, for the first time, realized something powerful. She didn't just return stronger, she returned untouchable. And tonight, every single person in that gym finally understood exactly who they had underestimated. The storm inside the room had just begun. The music trickled back into the background, but the reunion felt as if it existed under glass, quiet, tense, and fragile. People hovered around Maya like they wanted to speak but didn't know whether they deserved to. After everything they'd done in the past, after the way they'd treated her, what right did they have to approach her now? Maya felt their eyes. She felt their hesitation, their guilt, their shock. But she wasn't here for them. She didn't need their apologies or admiration. She had outgrown this place long before she stepped foot inside again. After several minutes of forced chatter and awkward silences, Maya excused herself and slipped to the back of the hall. She needed a quieter corner, away from the hypocritical smiles and trembling voices. There, sitting at a small table with a plastic cup of fruit punch, was someone she actually remembered with warmth. Mrs. Greer, the biology teacher who had always been kind to her when kindness was rare. Mrs. Greer looked up, her expression softening instantly. "Maya Delton," she said, tears gently pooling in her eyes. "My girl, look at you." Maya smiled, really smiled, for the first time that night. She crouched beside her former teacher and embraced her tightly. "Mrs. Greer, you look exactly the same." "Oh, please," the older woman logged. Brushing her silver hair back. "I look like I need more sleep and stronger coffee." They both laughed. It felt natural. Easy, healing. "You've become something incredible," Mrs. Greer whispered, squeezing her hand. "I always knew you were capable of the extraordinary." For a moment, Maya's eyes softened with grief and gratitude. There weren't many people who believed that. "But you did. You were the first." Mrs. Greer's voice trembled. "And you proved it true. You flew." Maya exhaled a shaky breath. "Yeah," she said. "I flew." The tenderness of the moment didn't go unnoticed. Several classmates watched from a distance, shame creeping across their faces as they realized how differently they had treated the same girl. But Maya didn't linger in the past. She wrapped her arms around Mrs. Greer one more time, then rose to her feet. It was time to leave. She had said everything she needed to without saying much at all. As she headed toward the exit, footsteps hurried after her. "Maya, wait!" It was Tara, breathless, uncertain, stripped of the queen bee arrogance that once defined her. She stood there trembling, slightly, her perfectly lined eyes glossy with something rare on her face. Vulnerability. Maya turned slowly. "Yes?" Tara swallowed hard. I just want to say I'm sorry." Her voice cracked. "For everything. For the notes we posted on your locker. For the rumors. For the way we treated you. You didn't deserve any of it." Maya stared at her for a long, silent moment. The memories flickered across her mind like old film. Painful, dull, but distant now. They no longer had claws. "I accept your apology," Maya said finally. Tara blinked rapidly. You do?" "Yes," Maya nodded. "But accepting it doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't mean the scars disappear." She softened her tone, but not her resolve. "We all have scars. The only difference is what we choose to build from them." Tara's lip trembled. She nodded. "I understand." Maya held her gaze. "I hope you grow from yours. Truly." With that, Maya stepped outside into the cool night air. The breeze brushed through her hair as she approached the field where the Apache waited. Its dark silhouette powerful, intimidating, and yet strangely welcoming. The two soldiers straightened the moment they saw her. "Ma'am," one said with crisp respect. Maya nodded. "Prep for departure." "Yes, ma'am." Behind her, dozens of former classmates spilled out onto the field, drawn by the roar of the engines warming up. They watched, not with mockery, not with cruel amusement, but with awe. Real awe. The girl they once called worthless now commanded a machine worth millions. The girl they laughed at now held a rank higher than most people her age could dream of. The girl they bullied now stood taller, emotionally, mentally, and literally, than any of them. Maya climbed into the cockpit with the practiced ease of someone who belonged there far more than she ever belonged in that gym. The ground trembled as the rotor spun faster. Dust whipped into the air, forcing people to shield their faces. But their eyes never left her, this woman who had risen so far above their reach. And then, just before the helicopter lifted fully off the ground, Maya looked down at them through the open door. She didn't smirk. She didn't gloat. She didn't revel in revenge. She simply smiled, a small, knowing, peaceful smile, a smile that said, "You couldn't break me, and you never will." The Apache rose into the night sky, its blades slicing the air with the thunder of triumph. The reunion guests watched, until it became a shadow, then a speck, then nothing more than a memory of a night they would remember, forever. Because the class loser hadn't just shown up, she had arrived like a force of nature. She had shown them who she had become, and she had left them standing in the dust of the past they created. The truth settled over the field as the last echo of the helicopter faded. She wasn't the loser. She never had been. The real losers were the ones too blind to see her worth when it mattered. And tonight, she flew away. Not from her past, but far, far above it.